the fun part of real estate. Thanks.
Mhm.
Where, I feel like, showing homes is the fun part, perhaps the easier part. I know it's a lot of running around, but I feel like now making, receiving offers, this is where it's skill based. And, you really have to put skill into play.
Can I get just someone to say something? I'm trying to make sure that the audio in the room,
Hello?
Check, check, check.
that's better. Thank you.
And you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. I can, anyway. I'm not speaking for the rest of us. But
All right, so you can switch to the next screen. All right, so here we are. We're at section 17. You can go to the next slide. All right, so this is something I'm sure it's been reviewed in each course. Our Y, 4 C's, 2 T's. Can someone come up? Give me an example, right? Win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing, customers always come first. You guys can read these. Can someone just come off and give me an example, or even Kevin, of where this might come into play when dealing with clients or making, receiving offers?
Win-win or no deal, you said?
Yep,
That means everybody has to be satisfied in the transaction. Either, the seller gets what he wants, the buyer gets what they want.
correct. Or negotiate to find that happy medium so
Yes,
everyone's
right.
happy,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, both parties, everyone's trying to do the same thing, which is get to the same place, which is a closing table,
Yeah.
right? And when clients close, they're happy, right? So we're there to find the win-win in every deal.
Yeah.
You can change that, Lori.
okay, I was going to comment. Am I allowed to participate?
Yes, of course, please, yes, 100%.
Two things come to mind. Integrity, do the right thing, because we work in an industry where sometimes it pays us more money not to do the right thing. So I think that it's important to keep in mind, what our end goal really is. It's not always about making the most money. And then communication, seek first to understand, because if we don't understand the needs of our clients, then we're not able to do the right thing for them.
100%. Yeah, the integrity piece is huge. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Lori. So the agenda for today, we're going to be talking about the offer process, preparing the offer, writing the offer, presenting the offer, receiving and responding. Now as a listing agent, right? On the other side, and then we'll recap. So we're going to be talking more so on the buyer side, representing the buyers. And presenting that offer, and then a little bit about receiving. We're going to be talking about how to communicate with buyers and sellers, understanding best practices, and so we'll brainstorm a little bit too and throw out some ideas.
Yeah.
And I want to ask everyone before we get to the quote: is there something right off the bat that that you want to learn or ask about, or you have a question about and you're hoping that it's going to be answered in this class? I'll assume you know it all. Anything? Questions up front? Kevin, you think of anything?
What was that?
Do you have any questions up front that you're hoping can be answered, or that you'd like to, that you want to learn or cover in this class?
There's a lot that I want to learn, because everything changes day to day. Everything is different all the time. Every situation is different, so I just need to learn the most I can learn.
Okay, good answer. Yep, things are changing. Anybody else out there? All right, we can switch. It would be great if Zoom participants could come on the camera. Yes, please. I would love for you guys to do that. All right, so let's take a look at this quote. I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade not manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation. I'd like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade. Hi, Erica. 100%. You know, when it comes to making and receiving offers, it's really about graceful win-win negotiation, right? And always being that cooperative agent who's persuasive, but finding the win-win on both sides. All right, so let's switch that slide. So, all right, so this should be in your participants guide. I'm at my horse job. I can listen and type if, and want to have both hands free. Thanks, Wendy. All right, so we're gonna be going through the offer process, preparing the offer, writing the offer. So we did this already. We recapped on this. So let's talk about what emotions do buyers and sellers have at this stage of the process?
Uncertainty and stress, maybe.
Maybe. Yep. Yeah, anxiety.
Yeah, like some anxiety,
Uh-huh.
like not really knowing what's going on, nervous, Erica said.
Very nervous. Yep. Excited too.
Also excitement and elation. They're very excited about what's the potential.
Right. Anything else?
Happy they found something that they're interested in, right? Like if we're making an offer, then it's a good feeling to find something that you really like and know that it's a possibility.
Right. And something that I'm seeing more right now that
Negotiations,
what's that?
more means to negotiate as a buyer.
Okay, and what is that making? How are the buyers feeling? We're trying to pull out the emotions.
Yeah, a little bit more relieved, because before you were making offers and you weren't getting.
Okay, so
Now they feel a little bit more relieved that they can put in an offer and potentially get that offer.
I hear what you're saying. So buyers are feeling relieved that they have more opportunity at possibly winning the deal and getting the property. I'm also sensing now caution, right? I feel like buyers are cautious and they're more in tune with their finances, right? Because of what we have going on in the market sales. Yeah. So when emotions run hot for others, for buyers, sellers, it's our job to completely remain professional and put together, right? It's not our purchase, it's not our sale. So we don't get a chance to be emotional. We're the ones who, right? We always say agents they wear a bunch of hats, and sometimes we throw in a therapist hat, right? Right. It's not for us to get emotional or aggravated or worked up about certain things in a transaction, but it's our job to serve them, to keep calm and reassuring and totally in control, and communicating things in a timely manner. Okay. All right, so here we are. This is the process. Buyer makes an offer. Then the seller can respond in one of three ways. And I use these words when I talk to sellers all the time. You can do one of three things. You can counter the offer, you can accept the offer, or you can reject the offer. Okay. If they accept the offer, right, that's that middle option, then you go right into inspections. So they talk a lot about contracts. We here in New York as agents do not write the contracts. We don't review the contracts with the clients, but what we do is write the purchase offer and then guide them through the inspection process. So that would be the next thing, is scheduling inspections. Yeah, it did. I was losing. And perhaps, touching base with the attorneys, and making them aware of the situation that there's an accepted offer. Countering the offer. If the seller counters, then we begin negotiations, right? And then it's now in the buyer's court. They can accept or counteroffer once again, or not move forward. Or the seller can reject the offer, okay? Now, what are the options for a buyer's agent if their offer was rejected? Well, no, the seller's agent calls you, the buyer's agent, and says, the seller has not accepted your offer. What do you do then? What are your
Another
options?
offer.
What's that?
Talk to your
So-
buyer and see what else you can. Whether it's a higher price or asking, what is your seller looking for in an offer? to
Okay,
be
so that-
accepted?
That's it right there, right?
Whether,
Exploring what is it that the seller is looking for? Is there possibly an opportunity for you to modify your offer to meet that? And always asking for that one more chance to get in there, and expressing that. And so obviously communication is huge, right? And communicating in a timely way, we're gonna talk more about that as well. What are the rules for how quickly you must provide them with contracts or other documents? Do you have electronically signed documents? Okay, so what is, let's say you present an offer to a seller's agent. Typically, what's the expectation on hearing back? Daniel, what's your expectation on hearing back from the listing agent?
I think it depends on the situation. I would say within like 24 to 48 hours. However, in the event that it goes to multiple offers, there's usually a deadline as to when those multiple offers are supposed to be submitted. And you can expect to hear back from them within 24 hours of that multiple offer deadline.
Right, so once an offer is presented, you should be hearing from the listing agent, I think within 24 hours, at least that it's been received, right? But it's also I waited a week for one, but the sellers were away on vacation, right?
Yeah, we come across situations like that, right, where something happens with the family or whatever. I think, wouldn't you agree that it's important to just kind of communicate that to get that communication from the seller's agent, or if you're the seller's agent, communicate that to the buyer's agent, just letting them know when they should expect a response back.
Correct, right? And so in representing your buyer clients, you have to stay in communication with the listing agent. And so I know clearly on more than one occasion, I know that the listing agent put our offer in front of their clients to say, I've worked with this agent before. They're very responsive. They're on top of their game. They've been in communication with me the whole time, saying, this is an agent that is good to work with, right? We can anticipate a smooth transaction with this agent on the other side. And that all comes from communicating with them and clearly communicating and then being cooperative with the other agent. That's huge. All right, so let's switch the slide. Ahas. All right, do you guys have some ahas or questions right now? I'll wait. No
I could
questions?
just say that in terms of communication, like we were talking about timeframes, I find that just from being in the business so long, some of the agents have a specific idea about, what their expectation is for a time frame, but your sellers are not mandated to do anything within a certain period of time, as long as they're doing things that are not unethical or illegal. So it's just super important. The communication part of it, like you said, is it doesn't matter what it is, as long as I know. So if I have to go back to my buyer and say, well, the listing agent did tell me it's going to be a week before we hear, that's fine. At least I know. So, I mean, that.
And then set your calendar, right, for 7 days
Yeah.
to call back and follow up. Can you open up the chat, Lori?
I can open up my chat,
Here, let me open the
but
chat.
not,
Yeah, open up your chat. It'll be the same as my chat probably.
you'd have to go onto the laptop and do, I
All
don't
right, so
think,
do we ask? Yeah, the bottom one, keep going. Yeah, do we ask to see proof of pre-qualification before putting in an offer? You mean before presenting it and putting it in front of the sellers, 100%. An offer is not complete unless there's pre-approval attached to that, where the number, where that's up to date and the number matches the offer that's being made, or proof of funds, where there's a bank statement with a number on it that is equal or exceeds the purchase price. So I hope that answers, an offer should always have that with it, either pre-approval or proof of funds. What else should they do? Yeah, it's one or the other.
Yeah, proof of funds, pre-qualification.
I won't meet with
pre-approval.
anybody unless I know that they have a pre-approval or pre-qual, or even send me their proof of funds.
You will meet with who, a buyer?
I will not show a house to a buyer unless I know they have a pre-approval. I'll sit down and I'll do a buyer consult with them and I'll explain everything to them.
Right,
But I will not show them a house without them sending me some kind of proof of funds or pre-approval.
Now, you just have to be careful of that because the law recently changed.
Yes.
So if you are not going to show them a house, then you need to provide them with somebody who will. And
Yes.
you need to be consistent with every single buyer that you're working with.
Correct.
So you
Correct.
can't show a house to one person who's not pre-qualified and then not to another person who's, it has to be
Mhm.
consistent across your business. And you have to be able to provide them with somebody who will in the event that you will not. Am I
And-
correct on that, Lori?
Yes, we have specific wording. This is what you're referring to as the standard operating procedures that have to be
You
the
want the chat
same
open still?
across the market centers. So it is in that we cannot require a pre-approval to begin providing service. So what Christina just said about she will sit down with them, she will have a buyer consultation, she will begin to provide service, and then she will ask them to get pre-approved. And as you know, and Christina, I'm sure you can speak to this, but once you start that conversation, it becomes crystal clear to the buyers that that's imperative. That's an imperative and that they need to do it right away. So.
and there's pitfalls to working with buyers who are not pre-approved. There's many of them.
I just let them know the advantages of having it already before we start looking, so that way. Because I tell them a lot of times they ask for pre-approvals to even get in some of these houses.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So
confirm
if you ask me to see a house that they're asking for a pre-approval to even be shown, then we can't go see it unless you have a pre-approval. So it's better to have it now and get it out of the way. So that way, anything that you ask me to see, we should be allowed to see.
Yes, that's excellent. And one script that I'll say to buyers also is, I would hate for us to go to a house that you fall in love with,
Correct.
for us to learn after the fact that you can't afford it and it's, above your means or not within budget. So let's find out what your buying power is now and work within that so that when you see the house and you find it and you fall in love, we're ready to go. So, obviously, there's a lot of advantages to getting that taken care of. No one needs to be running around with looky-loos, wasting time, and you will have serious agent burnout if you run with buyers who are not serious. It's a lot of work. All right, so let's go to the next slide. We're on prepare the offer. Let's go to the next one.
You have a hand up. Eugenio has his hand raised.
Okay,
Alison.
Junior?
Yes, you said that if we can't work with them, if they're not pre-qualified or pre-approved, and we have to find them somebody that will, what if you can't find someone?
There's always somebody that's willing to work with them.
Yeah. It may not be for
I-
long, but we'll get started.
What's that, Lori?
He said that it may not be someone who wants to work with them for long, but we'll find someone to at least get started.
Right. I would also ask the questions of, what's holding them back from getting the pre-approval. I would ask some clarifying questions too, and then what you do is, you reach out to, someone in the market center if you need help connecting to another agent. All right, so we're on, I hope that helps, Junior.
I usually get the answer that they don't want their credit score to go down. They want to wait until they're ready, but then if you're not even ready, why are you looking now? You know,
Correct, and they're only gonna run that one time. And then they'll run it perhaps once before for your commitment, so it's not run several times. Once you have that pre-approval, you should be fine.
yeah, they think that credit score is gonna drop.
It's not like getting a car where a dealership will run your numbers to several banks, and that could be a real problem. And so you could also speak to the lender, and they can speak to the lender. You could run my credit score now, and how is that gonna affect it? It really doesn't affect it that much if it's run once. And that is something that's eliminated. Whatever points that it deducts, that falls off pretty quickly.
It usually doesn't affect it too much because they know when you're house shopping and car shopping, you're looking for the best possible deal. So it usually doesn't affect it as much.
Once you have the initial, that you run that initial lender credit search, you have 30 days to shop around and it will not affect your credit score for each additional inquiry for a mortgage. So if
So-
you're looking to shop around and that's what they're telling you, then they, within that 30-day period, they can go to 4, 5, 6 different lenders if they want. It won't affect their credit score beyond the first hit.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lori. All right, so let's review this, prepare to write an offer. You guys can see this, and you might have a checklist in your participants guide as well. Ensure the property is still available. I mean, that's huge. You should be doing this before you show the house. Also confirming, looking up in the listing and agent remarks to see if there's an accepted offer. That would be the first thing. If nothing is written there, as I'm about to schedule appointments, and I typically schedule appointments, I don't know, not much more than 48 hours beforehand, because things change so quickly with properties. I am reaching out to the agent to make sure that the property is still available. And then obviously, when you're about to write an offer, you wanna find out, are there offers on the table? Have they accepted anything? And get a feel for what the competition is. Build a rapport with the listing agent. And that happens at first contact. The first call or email, always be polite, always be cooperative, because it will help you along the way with working with that listing agent moving forward. Inquire about activity. I just mentioned that, like, how many people have seen the house? Do you have offers on it right now? Inquire about other offers on the property, status, why do they fall through? So, for instance, I was on a call with an agent this morning where the property was first put on the market July of 2021. Okay, it's been on the market a long time. So what happened? It came on the market, off, back on. And so he talked to me about the 2 deals that fell through and why, right? So you get to learn, like, are there issues with the house? Was it buyer's remorse? Was it, what was it? And it gives you an education on the property and also good information for your buyers moving forward. Let's say it was an underground oil tank, that killed both of those deals because the owner does not want to do anything about it. So if you have a buyer who's not willing to remove an oil tank, well, you might not have a deal, right? So you have to ask those questions. 5, ask questions about seller motivations and needs. So you get the listing agent on the phone and you ask questions like, what's important to your seller in reviewing an offer? And they may just spill it right there. Well, they are already under contract on another property. They need to move very quickly. All right, so now we know timeline is huge. The answer might be they want the highest number. They don't care how they don't care if it's cash, financing, whatever. They're looking for the most money. And then you can ask if there's other offers on the table, how competitive are they, right? And you just listen and see what they're willing to tell you. We're on 6. Ask listing agent how they want to receive the offer. This is huge. So sometimes I get offers in dot loop. It drives me bananas. I don't specifically write in my agent remarks how I want the offer, but but I probably should. There are some agents who will ask for everything to be put in one PDF. So you have the offer, you have the pre-approval, maybe you have lead-based paint document and, or agency, whatever you include, and you put that all in one PDF and send it off so it's neat. I will typically send, those things, if I can get in one PDF, I will do that just because it's easy for everyone to see. But I'll also recap the offer in an email. Quickly with bullet points of, this is the purchase price. My sellers are willing to waive appraisal, whatever it is, they'll move quickly. We'll have inspection scheduled within the first 48 hours, whatever is going to help where I can bullet point for them, I'll do that as well. And I always call and review the offer with the listing agent over the phone. Once again, extremely cooperative, friendly. I always make nice, right? Always make them, because being a hard butt,
Yeah.
being a PETA or a hard butt, try not to curse.
Yeah.
If you're a hard butt, right? It's just not going to help you, even if they are. I don't match when other agents, right? We always learn to mirror and match when we work with clients. Very different with agents. If an agent comes at me aggravated, yelling, whatever, I do not match that. I am the one who's calm, cool, collected, and say, all right, what do you need me to do? That's usually my answer. What do you need me to do? What do you want to see happen? How can we work past this? What do we need to do? So, just a little tip. All right, number 7, obtain the buyer's pre-approval from the lender. That should be submitted with the offer. Review MLS and tax records. I would do this before writing the offer. So you do want to check the taxes. Are the taxes accurate? Review the MLS. And part of that is like what's included and excluded from the sale, because that will also be put on the offer. Okay. You want to do a CMA, comparative market analysis. Now, I got to be honest, the last couple of years, I didn't do a lot of these because it didn't matter. So sad to say. Like
You didn't have time, no time to do a CMA. You got to get your offer in like now.
It didn't matter what the CMA told you. You were competing against every other buyer out there. And so more important than a CMA was to get a feel and a pulse of what was happening at that property. How many people were at the open house? How many offers do they have in? Are they over asking? Are they doing highest and best? All of those things were more important than actually running a comparative market analysis. Now we're getting back to comparative market analysis. Obtain a seller's disclosure statement and other needed documents. Okay, so in New York, I've only had one deal where a seller actually did a property condition disclosure statement. Almost all, or I would say all, probably 100% of real estate attorneys will advise a seller not to complete a property condition disclosure statement. And are there people here that do not know what that is? Anybody? All right. So the real estate agent will then just tell them to give a $500 credit at closing. All right. So typically we're not reviewing that because, but unless if the seller does fill one out, we will obviously review it. Okay, we can go to the next. All right, ahas, questions, comments. Did you learn anything yet?
I
All
did.
right.
So when I'm working with sellers, with buyers, the best practice is because sometimes I get a little intimidated by asking them to get that letter of approval. Like I might scare them away or something, but I see. And then when they find something that they like, then they go and get the letter of approval. But I see that I need to change that up a little bit, huh?
So Meredith, let me ask you a question. You know, are you asking them what their budget is?
Yes.
And so how do they know what their budget is?
Well, I guess they know because, I don't know. I guess they know like how much, I guess they know, like, I know what my budget would be if I was looking for something without a pre-approval. Because I would know like what I would be able to afford.
Sure,
you
right.
know.
You can run it through like a mortgage calculator, but to be quite honest, you know, what buyers could afford 2 months ago, they're completely priced out right now with their financing. Right, so if they were looking at a $400,000 home 2 months ago, they might only afford a 25 home now.
Right.
So, you know, so I think it's also in the presentation, and then script, literally like script and role play it, Meredith. So that you're comfortable saying the words and talking to buyers about the benefits of getting a pre-approval, knowing their purchase power, being ready to go right off the bat. You know, when they find a house that we can write an offer, and we can tell them sometimes it takes 48 hours to get a pre-approval, and you don't have 48 hours sometimes when you find the house, you know, that
Right.
you want to put an offer in. And then developing a relationship with a lender prior is super important, because they're going to be working very closely with them through that process. So connect with a lender, and rather have it be rushed. I have to get a pre-approval, I have to work with this lender now. You know, they have the freedom to talk to several lenders and find out who they like and what products they provide. I mean, right now there are like 2-1 buy downs that lenders are talking to us about. Those are important things for us to learn and share with our buyers. Okay, so listen, you don't want to waste your time, and you want to tell your buyers that you don't want to waste their time either, right? So it's all in presentation.
I think the other thing too, Meredith, is you could talk about, you know, buyers often know what their monthly budget is, but they forget to calculate things like taxes and insurance. And then the cash that they're going to need to close is huge. And most buyers will underestimate how much cash. And so those are the types of talking points you can use with those buyers to make sure that, you know, they can afford even, you know, not necessarily just the monthly payment, but to actually purchase the home.
Yeah, thank you.
That's an amazing point, Lori, right? Because now here in our market, they pay taxes up front. They pay a year taxes at closing on top of closing costs and down payment. So, yeah. that's
Really,
right.
I didn't know that they pay a year of taxes up front.
They get a year of taxes paid, put in escrow, and then they start to pay taxes monthly after that. Now, that first year, there might be an overage and they could get a refund, but typically at closing, I haven't seen anything different. Have you, Lori?
It depends on the timing of it, when the taxes are due, and it depends on the lender and their and the person's financial situation. So it can depend on a lot of things, but yeah, it's super important to know what you're up against. But so if you're closing right now, you're responsible for the entire school year tax bill. They just came due. So they're going to be collecting a lot more money up front than, you know, especially if you're closing, especially like in the summer when those bills are coming due, you know, they're going to be asking for the entire bill to be escrowed, and that can significantly increase the buyer's cash position getting in.
That's interesting. So that is a conversation that a lender will have with the purchaser.
Yes.
Correct. And let's give an example. If it was 6 months from now, the buyer may owe 6 months of taxes upfront at closing to cover the rest of the year until the taxes are built. Which you're saying, were they just, it's already paid.
So like the school taxes are due in this area in general are due, you know, sometime late summer, early fall. So if you're closing in September and the entire tax bill needs to be paid, the seller gets a credit for that. So if they've already paid, so say it's October 1st, the seller paid the tax bill for the school taxes, they're going to get 11 months of school taxes back. Say they were due on September 1st, but the buyer is gonna have to pay those school taxes then. So if you're buying a house where, you know, $8,000 is a portion to the school taxes, then your buyer may have to come up with $5 or $6 grand at the closing table from their cash position just to cover that burden. So it really.
Wow, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I will be having that conversation this morning with all my buyers, and I'm gonna have them reach out and get that taken care of. I
Great.
feel like the more serious buyers do take care of it right away, those, as soon as I mention it. But there are some that are very hesitant, so those are probably the looky-loos that I'm dealing with at the time.
And there are buyers that are not comfortable talking to their agents about what cash they have in their bank account. I mean, that does happen. But
Uh-huh.
they have to be comfortable talking to the lender. The lender has to know all that information, so
Yes,
it's a good way to get around that also, is. You know,
yeah, thank you, thank you.
welcome.
Mhm.
All right, so let's go to the next slide. We're on writing an offer, okay. All right, so these are all the things that we want to consider when writing an offer. And we're gonna look, I have a couple offers too that we're gonna take a look at. So let's go through these things here. Price and terms. So you want to consult with your buyer, obviously, to get to the most logical price that they want to make as an offer. I don't know what other buyers agents do, but they always say to me, what would you offer? What would you offer on this house? What's your response?
I say, I hate this house. I would never buy it myself.
No, you don't.
Just
Well, if I
kidding,
don't
just
like the
kidding.
house, I'll just say to them, well, how much do you love the house? Do you love the house enough to pay over asking, or do you like the house where it's at asking, or is it, it's okay if the house goes to somebody else?
That's
It's
a
kind of
great
the
point.
perspective that I put.
And on the flip side of that, if they want to go under asking and you know it's competitive and there's a lot of people coming through, and let's say they want to undercut by 10,000, I say, well, is the $50 to $75 a month that the $10,000
Mhm.
difference is going to save you worth losing the house if in fact they have a full price offer on the table?
Mhm.
And putting it in perspective like that, $10,000 to the seller is a lot of money at the closing table but when financing over 30 years,
It's like
a buyer
$50.
can, it could be $50, $60,
Yeah.
right, per month.
I'll
So,
ask them- Sorry, Allison.
no, go ahead.
I'll ask them too, you know, at what price are you willing to walk away? You have to figure out your walk away price. In this market, when we're, you know, typically still competing offers and going up against other people, that's one of the questions that I would say, okay, you just have to decide like how much over ask and at what number are you willing to walk away? And that's where we go.
Very good. And I present it like, you know, how high would you go where, you know, you're not gonna be kicking yourself in the butt afterwards where there's any type of buyer's remorse.
Now, a question, because I have a couple of buyers that's trying to buy cash, but they trying to get out of me what the highest offer is on the property. And I tell them, listen, I'm not able to disclose that to you, you just have to put in your offer.
Mhm.
So,
Well, you are able to disclose that if you learn that from the seller's agent. If the seller's agent has permission from their seller to disclose what offers he has, he can share that with you. So I'm never as bold as to say, what offers do you have on the table? I start by saying, has your seller given you permission to disclose or give guidance on the offers that you have on the table? And then I let them talk and I stop talking.
Some of them have diarrhea of the mouth and they'll just come out with it,
Correct.
which then, oh, I'm not listening, but you did listen. So then you can go back to your buyer and say, hey, this listing agent just said this to me, but I'm gonna give you this information. What do you think? And you
Right.
kind of go from there.
Right. So,
I actually can get authorization from my seller to disclose.
100%.
Yeah, just you have to ask them, hey, do you mind sharing the offers that we've had, or what you're looking to get the most money for your house?
I received I was representing the seller on a transaction. I received an offer. It was written on the offer that that buyer specifically asked to have one last chance after all the offers were in, for him to come and possibly meet or beat the highest offer that they had.
That could also come in an escalation clause.
It could as
Yes.
well. They went to highest and best, and after highest and best, even after all of that, they went to that one buyer and said, this is where we are. Are you willing to come up or do a little bit more? And that buyer won. So I was representing the sellers and I said, let's not forget, we have this one buyer, even though we did highest and best, who asked, let me have that last chance. And the seller said, okay, it's really, what we do is directed, based on what the sellers tell us to do.
Yeah.
Only thing I would, sorry,
Lori?
if I could just caution you on that, to be very, 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 very careful that there's no fair housing violation issues going on there, okay? So if you have 10 offers, why would you single out an individual and allow them to come back after highest and best? Make sure that you keep that clean, and that, it could be simply because they were brazen enough to ask, and that's
Yes.
okay. Just want to be crystal clear on what's going on there and why your seller's making that decision, and be sure that it doesn't look like a fair housing violation.
And we have all of these checklists on writing an offer, and in the facilitator's guide is the only thing that's written is a full page on fair housing, and do not write a love letter. Do not write a love letter, and be very careful about buyers writing letters to the sellers that disclose any information on familial status or age or race or anything like that. Those are all fair housing violations. Those letters should not be presented to the agent nor the sellers if you're representing the buyers. I would say it's probably best practice to not share letters at all, but I would imagine there are some letters, Lori, that might be very benign that could be shared.
You should never share those letters on, it's just a standard
The
of
problem.
practice in the industry, because they're just, if you've ever read any of those letters, there's always something. And if you share one, then you have to share all of them. Like you shouldn't be picking through and deciding. You should just have a policy that, and you can put it right in your listing agreement. If you're the listing agent, the listing agent will not provide any, personal letters to the seller. So, something along those lines, but they just open a door for someone to file a complaint against you. They just want
Okay, perfect. So writing offer, seller's disclosure. Again, we don't see sellers do, it's very rare that there's a seller's disclosure that's been completed by the seller. Conveyances. So consider like what times in the home will transfer or convey to the buyer. Any like attached fixtures that stay in the house, or what movable items go with the seller, all of those things. And these are things that can be expressed in the purchase offer. So they're listed in the MLS. Range stove, dishwasher, washer dryer, what have you. The chandelier in the dining room does not stay. The second oven in the basement does not stay. And those are, anything that's included, you want to make sure is also in your purchase offer. All right, earnest money. Let me just ask, not people who are experienced. Does anyone here know what earnest money or earnest deposit is? And want to share rather than me? Can somebody come on now?
Is it that money that you give with the purchase offer as good faith money?
Close. It's It's the money that's given at the signing of contract. So very close. You said, with the offer, but you submit the offer. If you then have an accepted offer, you go through the inspection process. And then you sign contracts, and the buyers will leave an earnest deposit at the signing of contract. That's like their skin in the game and it ensures that the buyer doesn't just walk away. So that earnest money goes towards the purchase of the house. It sits in escrow in the attorney's office or in their bank account, I should say. And then it's put towards the purchase of the house at the end.
Just so you know, for FYI, for anyone who's writing contracts, so those would be our Columbia Green Northern Duchess people, and anyone up in our Oneonta offices, they are writing an actual ratifiable document, can turn into a contract upon the end of the attorney review phase. So they do take an earnest money deposit, an additional deposit on top of the money that's put down on contract. So there is that. Typically in this area, if you're working in the greater Orange Rockland area and just writing a purchase offer, we no longer do earnest money in that from that perspective. And just what Allison said, it's on contract with the attorney. But there is a differentiation.
All right, thank you, because I don't know anything about what they do upstate.
Yeah, they do. It's typically written into the purchase offer, but it's from what I can see, mostly a 1% down payment that gets delivered with the actual contract of sale that's written by the buyer. So, and then that gets sent off to the attorneys with a specific review period. If the attorney doesn't respond, then that actual contract, it becomes ratified. So it can turn into a real contract, and then the additional monies you put down then. So not to confuse it.
Do you get the earnest money back if the house doesn't go to closing?
It depends. So typically if it's something like an inspection issue, or a person is not able to obtain a mortgage, then yes. If it's a flaky buyer, if it's a flaky buyer who bails out, then sometimes no. It depends on what's written into the contract.
Oh, it's gotta be reconnected.
Mhm.
We're trying to reconnect here.
Sorry.
Why don't,
Why does it do that?
Zoe did something on her phone.
Oh, I have the hoot thing.
Okay. But you can hear me, right? So we'll keep going. Due diligence and inspection period. So, if you are lucky enough to have an accepted offer for your buyers on a property, it's written on the purchase offer, or ours anyway, through a market center. We have 10 days that inspections will be scheduled and conducted within 10 days.
Its name is Benedict, side note, sorry.
Okay, you have 10 days to schedule and conduct inspections. In this market still, I would say, don't take 10 days to do that. If you try and schedule within the first day or two, you should have all your inspections scheduled, whether it's home inspection, septic, oil tank, soil testing, water, radon, whatever it is. That should all be scheduled right away once you have an accepted offer. So time for seller acceptance. I know in other markets, there is a timeline for sellers to respond. We don't have that. I think it's the seller takes the wheel at that, and they decide along with their agents what the time frame will be for when they accept an offer. What I said before was there's no there's really no guidelines for them as far as a timeline of when they have to accept an offer. Is that right, Lori? You said something like that?
Yeah, our code of ethics says that, every offer must be presented in a, the verbiage is sort of in a timely fashion. So it doesn't say specifically within a period of time, but, a reasonable amount of time. But as I said, if there's communication and.
Yeah, but it's telling me there's no meeting on it.
Sorry,
It's
we're
okay.
trying to thread the owl.
Just if, I mean, in this market, I've had listings where I've just put in the listing, the seller will review any and all offers on, Friday, November 20th, right? So I know if I have a buyer and I send an offer over that, obviously it gets presented to the seller, but we're not responding to you until, a certain period of time because we know, we have 15 showings in the next 2 days and we're probably going to get multiple offers, and that's perfectly okay. So it's just that the offer has to be presented in a reasonable period of time, but in terms of accepting it, they don't even have to accept it. So that's what it is.
Okay,
But good communication is the key there again, right? Like Allison was discussing in the beginning. If you let people know that, then there's less anxiety.
100%.
Don't you think, in this market, don't you think the highest and best is not really in play at the moment? Or is it still in play?
I think it depends too on the market, the local market, and then the pricing of the house, because if there's a home that's priced at market value or below market value, we'll get a lot of attention and we'll still see multiple offers in certain markets.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say it's completely out of the question right now. It really just depends on the pricing of the house and the market it's in.
Thank
So we're
you.
on, you're welcome. We're on financing terms, and so this could be specified right on the offer. Is this a conventional loan? Is this a FHA? Is it cash? Right? And that could be specified right on the offer. Buyer pre-approval letter, obviously this should be accompanying your offer. Closing date, you can recommend an on or about closing date, but it's never really set in stone. Even when the attorney writes it in the contract, that closing date is never quite set in stone in this market. In this market. Home warranty. So, you know what, I'm seeing it more in our market where, and I'm also recommending with some sellers that they purchase a home warranty that will transfer to a home buyer. It gives confidence to the buyers moving forward. And particularly if it's a home that we feel might be a little bit more challenging to sell, a home warranty might be a great idea for the seller to purchase, and then can be transferred to the buyers. I also know of many agents down south that they, as part of their listing value added, they will buy the home warranty on the house for the buyers. My friend is a buyer, but she's able to get a USDA loan, which she got because I didn't see the rest of that.
It says my friend is a buyer, but she is able to get a USDA loan, which got because she didn't have funds for down payment. How would you present that offer with no down payment earnest money, or should I have put money aside for that regardless of her loan?
So that's a great question. So USDA, those are for homes in a specific area. Not all homes will qualify to have a USDA loan financed on that property. So you have to make the right match there. And I would always recommend that an earnest deposit be put on the property. I think it just strengthens the offer, and they can use that money towards closing costs, because they will have closing costs, even if they have zero money down, at closing. So I would always recommend earnest deposit. I don't think, I feel pretty confident saying that most sellers would be very hesitant on moving forward on an offer where there was no skin in the game and no earnest deposit, unless of course it was like, I don't know, a distressed home and they had no other options. But I would, if they have money put aside for closing costs, they can use that towards an earnest deposit, and they're gonna need that.
And they can't have a contract without consideration, and they're gonna have to have some cash, even if the down payment, like Allison said, they have other closing costs. So it's not that no one will ever get into a house with exactly zero cash.
Zero, right. Right. Nothing's free. It's all free.
When you talk military, I know they usually put money down, but then they get it back in the back end or something like that.
So it's very similar to how the money works with USDA. You could get a VA loan with 0% down, but they're still gonna have closing costs, and they should still put earnest money down.
Yeah, but then they
It's
said
very
it's
similar.
something about getting it back at the.
Well, they
back.
can use it towards their closing costs at closing. Correct. Or get it back if their earnest deposit is more than their
Exceeds.
closing costs. Correct. Right. What else, Phil? All right, so thank you, whoever, I can't see who wrote that chat, but thanks. Repair limits, so we haven't, when we write an offer, we haven't had the inspections done just yet. So repair limits really does not apply to us here in this market. We would be negotiating inspection items and repairs or negotiations on price if there were issues that came up on the inspections after the inspection, right? And then maybe we're altering the price of the house after that. Maybe the seller is agreeing to do some of the work that might be needed, okay? Special clauses, you know, are there any special conditions that must be met in order for the contract to close? I'm trying to think of what
Home sale contingency.
home sale could, thank you, exactly. So the buyer has a home to sell and they have to sell it before they can buy this one. Hopefully they're already have an accepted offer under contract when they're writing offers so that they're in a better position. Inspections, appraisal, right, also would be perhaps one of these special clauses or contingencies. Escalation clause would be a special clause. Should we talk quickly about escalation clause? Like, are you guys familiar with them? Would you like to talk about it for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so escalation clause, there's a document in command in your documents for this. So an escalation clause is something that's put into an offer. It could be written right on the offer, but it also, in my opinion, should be supplemented with the escalation clause document. And what this does is it gives your buyer an opportunity to compete at a different level than just putting in one purchase price. And it works similar to, is it eBay?
Yeah.
eBay. All right, let's give an example. So I want to buy a pair of boots on eBay. And I'm gonna offer $100, but I'm also gonna place a maximum bid for the boots at $150. And I want my bid to go up in increments of $25. And those are all the parameters that you set with eBay, that you put in there. So let's say I have the highest bid right now at $100, but it doesn't close out for a couple days. Someone comes in and they put in a bid for, what did I say my max bid was?
150.
All right, so somebody puts an offer 115. Now what happens?
You go up to 120
I go up to 125, right? My increments are at
Oh,
$25.
or $25. Okay, yeah.
$25, so now I'm at 125. Someone else comes in
No, that's one.
and they bid at 145. Now my increments are $25, but my max bid is 150. Where is my bid now?
150.
150. So right now I hold the highest bid. That's exactly how an escalation clause works. So I would like to place an offer on this house for $300,000. My max bid is $330,000 in increments of 5,000 increases, okay? And so that escalation clause document kind of spells it out for you and you just fill in the information, right? So you don't even have to come up with the correct language for the escalation, it's on there. Is that clear?
I like that.
Okay, so it's a great tactic, it's a great strategy. I've used it often. I've also gotten a lot of pushback from the listing agent. I've had listing agents say, we're not accepting escalation clauses. And so I asked the clarifying questions Is that from the seller? Does the seller not want to review escalation clauses because it could potentially get him more money? I'm surprised that the seller would not want to consider it. Typically, it's the listing agent who's unaware, unfamiliar, a little nervous, not sure how to explain it, who pushes the escalation clauses away. And it's happened to you, even with a KW agent, right? Where I pushed and pushed and pushed and said, you know, this is, I can't understand why a seller would not do this. Please explain to me, right? And she explained it as she felt it was unfair. And I said, oh, did you just say you feel that it was unfair? Remember, it's not our emotions. It's not our deal. It doesn't matter what we think about it. What matters is, are we taking care of our clients in the best fiduciary way that we can, which is, are we taking their priorities into consideration, and are we working to get the most money for our buyers in their best interest, right? And so I always feel like if a listing agent comes to me and says, oh, we're not doing escalation clauses, well, I have a lot of questions about that then. So I mean, I like them. I like them on both sides. I like presenting them on the buy side, and I have no problem accepting them on the list side. It's leverage on the list side. It's
I
100% leverage.
I just had a listing that we went to highest and best. We had 11 offers. And interestingly, 2 of them competed against each other in the highest and best situation, which really one of them pushed the other up, which pushed the other up. So it was a very, very interesting scenario, but I totally concur, Allison. It always benefits your seller. So
100%. And that highest end bid, were they both kind of neck and neck? And did somebody beat out somebody else by just a couple thousand? What happened?
yeah, it ended up being $3,000. So one maxed out before the other, and that's what I mean. It pushed the price ridiculously high. I don't think it's going to appraise, but the only difference was one offer maxed out before the other.
Right, so a difference of $3,000, but at the closing table could be 30,000 for your seller.
Yeah, and neither of those offers is what began the escalation. So those were not my best offers at their face value. So it was another offer that started the escalation. Of those, and it just escalated to the one who had the highest max out.
Excellent.
How do you know like you're getting real? How does someone know that the offers are real, that you're putting it into the escalation, that you're going up 5,000?
You mean on the buy side, right? How do we know that there's another escalation that we're competing against? You can ask the listing agent. They can cross out the names. And you can
and show you the offer,
and even the agent's name. A lot of times they'll want to scratch out the agent's name and present that to you. I don't know if, do they have to, Lori? I mean, typically they should.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to. This agent, was not a particularly savvy agent. She didn't even ask me to show her the other offer. Not that I couldn't, because remember, we're always fair and honest. So you don't want to make stuff up. But in our particular, and in the ones I've seen, it always says with a bona fide, realistic offer, right? So bona fide meaning, yes, there's an offer to purchase and a pre-approval that says those people can afford to buy the home under acceptable conditions. And if that's the case, then you can use that to escalate your other offer.
Even with escalation clauses, numbers don't always mean everything either, though. Like the highest doesn't always mean
The best.
the best, because
Correct.
there could be better terms.
Correct.
I've
It
had
could
a
be a cash
situation.
deal that supersedes, it could be just 2,000 above whatever the cash deal is.
Correct.
Doesn't mean you're gonna get it, because cash deal holds more power.
A seller for $2,000
Or FHA versus conventional.
conventional. So for instance, a seller, let's say we'll keep the number $2,000 more with financing, but they could take a cash deal with, $2,000 less. But if they did financing, they're probably under contract for another 30 days.
Yeah.
Which means another $2,500 of mortgage,
costs.
every.
And we seen it last year where people were, not doing inspections, they were waiving inspections, and they had cash.
Correct.
Those terms are obviously a lot better than,
So I had a situation where, similar to Lori's, where it was two that were neck and neck, and actually the way that the offers were written, they, even with their escalation clauses, were identical offers, identical financing. The only difference is that one was willing to waive appraisal and the other one wasn't.
Was not.
And when you're in a situation like Lori's, when you're in an escalation, where an escalation clauses come into play, and it pushes it up to this ridiculous amount that we're not confident that it'll appraise for that amount. You better bet that that seller's gonna accept the offer where they're waiving the appraisal, because then they have to pay the difference, which can only happen. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of this, but that can only happen with conventional loans. You cannot pay above appraised value in FHA, USDA, VA, nothing like that.
Right.
Only a straightforward conventional loan can you pay the difference in appraised
And
value.
play that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
it all comes down to weighing out the pros and cons to the terms.
And what the sellers want, right?
Right.
What's
That's it.
important to them.
Because
Yeah,
we talked about that in the beginning, understanding what's important to the sellers, right? And asking that question so that we know what's important to them when you're presenting an offer.
yeah, Allison just made a good point that, a pushed out closing date can cost the seller more money. So it's not always purely about the end dollar amount. Is okay, that extra 6 months in the home because they're looking for an extended closing date or something along those lines can end up just whittling away any additional benefit of a higher offer. So, and I wanted to point out too is, we talked a little bit about what you can and can't disclose, and I know that especially the younger agents with less experience don't understand this. You can disclose anything your seller allows you to disclose, as long as it's not unethical or illegal. So if we just talked about the scenario where maybe you have a cash offer that's lower and you've gone through this highest and best, and this, the seller's maybe all about the bottom line, and they're looking to, go with the financed offer, it is perfectly acceptable with the seller's permission for you to call that other cash offer agent and say, hey, we just got a highest and best of X. If your purchaser will bring its cash offer to Y, we'll go with that offer. And, I've had agents ream me out because I've used that tactic before and tell me that I'm disclosing information that is top secret and I shouldn't be telling anybody. That's not the case with your seller's permission. It's an excellent negotiation tactic when you're dealing with a cash offer, and you should be counseling your seller to use it.
Lori, if someone died in the house, and you as an agent, the listing agent, know that, must you disclose it? And if not, when
No.
do you have to disclose it?
You don't have to disclose a death in the house.
What if someone asks you? What if a buyer's agent asks you? if
Yeah, so
someone died in the house?
buyer's agent can ask anything they want. You always ask them to put it in writing and tell them that you'll present it to the seller. The seller is not obligated to answer. And typically, I mean, that can be a matter of public record, right? People can find those things out usually. So I always say, hey, I presented your question to my seller.
I heard but if there's a murder or something, you have to disclose that, right?
Not so.
No,
Not
you
in
don't.
New York, right? And so
No.
different states and different markets.
You don't
some
have
do
to.
regulate that.
No, a death or a murder is not, I mean, a murder, again, that, if your buyer's very concerned about that, it's your obligation as a buyer's agent to do that due diligence. That's public records, right? There are reports when there's a murder. Usually it's on the news, right? So you can find that information out and investigate that for your buyer, but the seller's not obligated to disclose a death in the home. Material defects, and people ask about ghosts. No, you don't have to disclose anything about ghosts unless there's a caveat. If the seller is earning money from the fact that there are ghosts in the home or reported, then they do have to disclose. So if you're giving ghost tours and collecting cash at the door, then you would have to disclose that.
And you might wanna look into the zoning to see if it's mixed
If
use.
it's ghost zoning.
Yeah, go zone. Yes. All right, awesome, thank you. So 13 addenda, we don't really have like addenda. Any kind of addendum to our, typically, that would be,
Writing offers now.
no, that's on the attorney, so we can go to the next slide.
Oh, I think where it's frozen.
I can't do anything from here.
Mm-mm.
I just recently had to do some
Hang in there,
research on
people.
somebody that thought a person passed away in the house and they was asking. It was a horror home in Newburgh. And they asked, did the lady pass away in the house? And I had to find out, she passed away in the house.
Yeah, I guess if your buyer client wants to know, you ask the questions.
I Googled-
Sorry, gang. We're gonna try and wait for, I don't have the slide access here. I guess I can try and pull it up and share my screen. Should I try and do that or no? She's the host.
Yeah, she's the host, so you probably won't even be able to share your screen.
All right, let's take a 2-minute break. I'm not even halfway through this.
Same thing happened to me, and then towards the end, it gets like frozen.
It's fast, all right? So we had Glenn here too.
And
Hi,
we're
Glenn.
meeting on Thursday to discuss negotiations, so. Thursday's the next one, not Wednesday this week, Thursday,
Why is it not Wednesday?
because we have
Because
command con.
Oh, Command Con, that's right, okay.
Are you
I hope you're all registered to that. I'm registered
Yep.
and I'll be here. It starts at 11 Eastern
Yep.
Standard Time
Mhm.
and it goes till 4.
Three.
Okay, 3, so it's 4 hours from 11 to 3. So if you have
Are you going
questions,
tomorrow to the regional event?
yes, are you?
I have to go.
Okay. So Command Con, if you have, if you want to learn more about Command,
Are you going there?
No, there's no.
register,
tomorrow.
it's free. And I think there's like
Really?
10,000 agents across the nation who are registered for that.
I thought that was today.
No, superintendent's day is tomorrow in Pine Bush. So the school's
Oh,
closed, yeah.
because I saw a bunch of people that were off today and Friday for Veterans Day,
So,
and then Monday. What's Monday?
Tomorrow's election.
yeah,
Tomorrow's
Oh,
election
yes,
day.
election day.
Friday's Veterans Day, nothing's on Monday that I know of.
Maybe the city's different.
Let me pull one. Yeah,
And Sharon was telling me how JJ and me didn't have school today, then I'll have school Friday, and then I'll have school Monday.
yeah, no, we had school today. They got on the bus, so. Pretty sure they're at school.
I hope they're at school.
Hope they're there. But yeah, I think
No,
it's
we're
like
all still here in the
superintendent
meeting.
conference Day or
Like
something.
Superintendent's Day,
okay,
honor the superintendent.
No, it's a.
no
conference
problem.
for
I
them,
was just
think.
calling to see if there's
And then
something I can
next
do on
week,
my
there's
end,
like
but
3 half days
I'm not the
for
host. Yeah,
What are we discussing?
parent teacher conferences.
you're logging in.
And then they're off Thursday, Friday, the following week for Thanksgiving.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you in a minute. Okay, bye.
I know.
All right, she's rebooting and logging back in.
And then it's like 2 weeks off for Christmas, right?
While we're here, everybody make sure you RSVP for the inspirational breakfast that is
Oh,
on
22nd.
Thursday, the 22nd. We're gonna have a guest speaker. Zoe's gonna interview them. And it's one of our agents,
Who is it?
just Jennifer Acevedo.
I don't know if people know that.
She in our market center?
Marcus?
Yeah,
And you'll have an opportunity while you're there to come meet your ALC members and learn a little bit more about our committees.
woohoo! We
And
have
what
the
time
best
is that
committee.
from?
Sorry,
We do
guys.
have best committee. Allison and I are co-chairs. So if you want to join the cool kids, join our committee.
That's it.
Also, side note, the inspirational breakfast is not on our Hudson Valley calendar.
So it's on the calendar that Zoe sent out this morning.
It's on the Google one that we have.
They're, okay.
I
We
can
have a new-
probably add
I'm
it.
pretty
What
sure
time
there
is
should be
it?
one.
We have a new office one, but I have both on here, so I can see.
It is from,
It should be put on the old one too, because not everyone
it's
is.
in lieu of our team meeting. So
So this KWHV group training calendar is old.
that's HV group training. So we are now kind of separating a little bit and having our own training calendar as well.
Just for this market center. So you should keep the old one.
So it's in, okay.
So it says HVU team meeting,
I can't spell.
and at that time, on the 22nd, it's gonna be a team meeting, inspirational breakfast. But you do have to RSVP, because there'll be food. And we
What
need
time
to,
is that from?
10 to 12. We should go 10 to 11:30, but this will probably go till 12. So we'll need to know how many seats and how much food. And here's Lori, hi, and so you have got an email, search your emails for inspirational breakfast, so you can RSVP and join us that day.
So sorry, you guys.
Oh, there we are,
All right.
all right, so we can go to,
Next slide.
yeah, next slide. All right, welcome to the entire, purchase offer, making sure that I'm setting proper expectations. All right. Review the purchase offer. Be sure your buyer understands the purchase offer. Review details like price, closing date, inspection, contingencies, conveyances. Know what is essential in your area. No standard or common terms for offers in your area. Avoid rookie agent mistakes. Oh, we'll talk about that. I'm wondering if now is a good time for us to review the offers. Does it seem like a good time to do that? Would you guys benefit from me putting an offer up and us looking at it line by line kind of thing? I just need one yes for it to be worth it. All right, so. There's one better, let's go to the other one. The other one's got a little more juice on it, I think. Is it all in one? Is it in one document? Can you scroll down? Or is it
I think
two?
that's confusing sometimes, so it's the SBI or SBO or whatever.
I'll talk about that, just so you can see that's a short SBL there, but on the other one. Wait, can you go to the, take your arrow to the left and just scroll down, Lori? Scroll down on the document.
For some reason, it does not want to scroll. Let me just, I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'll get to where we need to be on the document and then I'll share. How's that?
Okay,
Okay, because for some reason it's not letting me share. Okay. Good.
okay. So Junior here, you can see this, I have a long SBL on here.
Yeah.
So what I typically do is just copy the full SBL over the tax record. And this way I don't make a mistake. Either like typing it in or shortening it. So for instance, to shorten this is, it's probably 114-1-47 is probably the shortened SBL, but so I don't make a mistake, I literally copy the entire thing and put it down there.
Oh, okay.
Super important. It's because the address is not the official record of the property. And if you get that SBL wrong for some reason, and this happened when I was a young agent, it didn't happen to me, but in our office, there were two vacant parcels of land next to each other. And they got the SBL wrong and closed on the wrong parcel.
Was on the
So,
wrong, someone else owned the wrong thing, yeah. I've heard that before, not
Yeah.
just from you, I have heard that.
Yeah.
So obviously up top, name, I don't always include the addresses, it's necessary for the contracts to have addresses, but not always on the purchase offer. But whatever you do put on here, you want to make sure that everything is spelled correctly, their names are spelled correctly. And I always ask if they use a middle initial on formal documents, and I'll present their name properly on this purchase offer, because this is what the attorney is using to initiate the contracts. This is the start of the they take all this information and put it into the contract. So we go down, I have the SBL and the MLS number, okay? And the property address. So you can see I have numbers crossed out here, right? I have an initial offer. And then probably a highest and best is what happened here. And I kept the original offer so they could see where we started, what that original offer was, to where the buyers were willing to come up to, okay? And let's look and see what I have written on the side. So to the left of those numbers, that's all text that I included on the offer. I'm sure I also included this in like a cover letter email sent to the listing agent to kind of bullet point all of the terms of this particular offer. So buyers have their loan commitment already. They'll be utilizing a conventional loan. They're flexible with closing date. They have nothing to sell, so there's no home sale contingency. They will do inspection for informational purposes only. Now, these things, can be put in like other conditions of sale. You can write it down there. I like to write it. This is just my style. I like to write it right next to the numbers. Sometimes I put it in bold, I make stars, so that this way they're not missing it, that they see these are clear terms as part of this offer, okay? So you can see the closing of title shall take place on or about, so it's just like a guesstimate. It's the target date, it's, the buyer's not bound to that, nor is the seller. Other conditions of sale, so this is, all of the conditions that I listed above could be written here. I write none, there's nothing to sell, flexible with closing date. Okay, so just was kind of.
hey, Alison, if I can interject about that, so just through my experience, I've learned that closing date is really critical, like Alison was talking about early on, when you're talking with the listing agent and finding out about closing date. It's probably the one thing that I've seen that is so powerful in a negotiation, when one of the parties has a need in that arena. So it's really, we just use arbitrary numbers, or dates, but it's really important to know if the seller would love to stay in the house an extra month and the buyer can push out that closing date, it could make the difference in your buyer getting the property. So just want to reiterate that.
Thank you. My rule of thumb is from the accepted offer, I usually push it out a week, maybe it'll take a week or two to get under contract. And then I try and estimate if it's a cash deal, I'll go 30 days out. If it's a finance, a deal using financing, I'll push it out 45 to 60 days for an estimated closing date. Just like a little rule of thumb. So the next thing below conditions of sale, non-real estate items included in the sale, and this I copy and paste directly out of the MLS listing. So it's, unless we know that there's something else that we would put there. If we know, like here it says shed, so I'm trying to think of something else, I don't know, second oven or whatever it is. Maybe it's not listed in the listing, but you've spoken to the agent about it and there is something that's being included. You want to make sure that it's on here so it's included in the contract, okay? And then your information, the attorneys that are being used. It's nice to have the attorney who the buyer's going to use and have that on here. A lot of times, if it's a first-time home buyer, they may not have an attorney just yet, and you could put you know, to be determined. But obviously, if they're gonna get an accepted offer, they need to be engaging an attorney right away. Okay, and then you want to specify the commission. And that is right in the MLS listing, whether it's 2%, 2.5%, this happened to be 2.25%, which is nice. We don't see that often in the Orange County market. And then you make sure everything is signed below. And you send that off. All right. Anybody have questions on this? Okay. All right, so talk through the offer. This is now. Now you're on the other side. Am I right? Did we just switch from buyer to listing side? That's what that looks like. Oh no, this is review the contract. All right, we have to kind of skip this. We don't review the contract. But what are maybe we can let's brainstorm some agent, some like rookie agent mistakes. Sorry, Lori, you don't have to go back. I was just saying. Rookie agent mistakes. You guys have one? Oh my God, it's like pulling teeth.
Not submitting a pre-approval letter with the purchase offer.
Definitely. Yep. 100%.
Not doing your math correctly.
Not doing your math
I did
correctly.
that.
Oh, it happens. It
Not
happens.
understanding sellers' concessions.
Yes.
Oh, that's huge. That could be a whole class alone. What about not contacting the listing agent when you present an offer, right? Or making sure that it actually has been received. If you didn't get confirmation, don't assume that they saw your email. I actually have
It ends up in a spam.
in spam. I actually have a separate email address just for offers. Because as agents, you can get 50 to 100 emails a day, and you just don't want it to get lost, so I keep them all separate. All right, now you can turn, thanks, Lori. Any ahas? All right, let's move on. Present the offer checklist. Sweltering. All right, a double check. So present the offer checklist. Double check all the documents, follow instructions, label all documents clearly, order documents logically. You know, that's when you're putting it in a PDF, like you should have the offer first, the pre-approval next. An email summary. I noticed, I mentioned this before, sending in like a cover email with bullets that reviews in an easy, readable way for the listing agent. Notify the listing agent that an offer is coming over, talk to them and go over it on the phone with them. Add all documents to command, consult with your buyer. All right, let's move on from this. No, that's easy, no? All right, receive and respond. Okay, so now we're on the listing side, right? We're on the other side. Now we're working with a seller. Receive and review the offer checklist. You guys have a checklist in your participants guide. I'm actually wondering, is it longer than this, or is it just these 7 things? Let's go over this. Make sure the offer is complete, right? So make sure everything is there on the offer. And if you have questions, right, ask them and fill in the blanks. Confirm receipt of offer. So if you're the listing agent, let the buyer's agent know as soon as you get the receipt that you received it, and you will be presenting it to the seller as soon as possible, like ASAP. Get offer to seller in a timely manner. I've sent it off to the seller sometimes even before really scrutinizing and digging into pre-approvals, just so they can't say that I didn't get it to them right away, you know? And I'll say like, this just came in, I haven't even reviewed it, I wanted to push this over to you, so you have it, and we'll talk tonight like we agreed. We'll talk tonight at 5 o'clock and go over and see what we have. Create executive summary, call the buyer's agent. So I always reach out to the buyer's agent, just let them know where we are. We've received it. If I have questions about the offer, get clarification on that. And then give them any expectations on timelines if we know any. Call the lender. And we can call the lender to verify a pre-approval, and you can identify yourself as the listing agent and do that. Lenders will not give you any, they will not disclose any private or financial information about the buyer, but they certainly can verify that they are working with that buyer, that they did write that pre-approval letter, and that they are actually qualified.
And just like us, they can, if the buyer gives them permission, they certainly can disclose that information. So if your buyer wants a leg up in a competitive market, that's something they can offer to the listing agent.
Which is what? Talking to the lender
Yeah,
about.
the lender can disclose financial information about a buyer with the buyer's permission. So just when we're working with our, as a fiduciary, if I'm a buyer and I say, yeah, I want you to call them and tell them how qualified I am and how much money I have because I want this house, then that's perfectly acceptable.
Awesome. Okay, great. Create an outline document to reference when you call the sellers. So there's a couple ways to do this, if I'm reading this correctly, like, I've done Excel spreadsheets on offers, if there's a lot, perhaps there's like 20 offers. You could also use command and put all your offers in command. And then look at that and look at all the terms and weigh things through command as well. So we have a tool to do this. All right, let's turn the page on this one. Oh, create an offer in command. Perfect. So, all right, we'll skip that. Right, so you create an opportunity, right? You're putting your contacts in there, and you can manage this. What is this? Welcome home, Irene. Oh, this is just your health score, that's your cover page. Yeah, so just get everything into command. You should have your client in there immediately. And you should be putting all your documents in there as well. Okay, but that's for the buyer's agent. If you're a listing agent, you could be submitting offers into your listing opportunity for your clients. Okay. So here we are, receive, review, and respond to the offer. So the buyer makes an offer, the seller can respond in one of three ways. They can accept it, they can reject it, or they can counter offer, right? I use that when I speak to the sellers all the time. You can do one of three things, and I state this exactly to the sellers. If they make a counter offer, negotiations begin. If they accept the offer, right, then the buyer is then scheduling inspections, and we start that process. If the seller rejects the offer, you want to let the buyer's agent know, and it says your buyer's agent contacts listing agent to learn more. Don't assume no means no. And we talked about this before, right? Try and find out what was the offer lacking? Can you get another stab at it? Always try to learn and seek to understand what's going on. Don't assume it's a done deal. All right, let's turn the page. Reach a decision. So, yep, this is just repetitive. We just said this. Let me see if there's something else that I want to. So, once respond to the offer. Okay, maybe we could go back, Lori. I'm sorry, I'm making you go back and forth because I feel like there probably is some good conversation around this as far as reviewing offers with the sellers. Perhaps there's multiple offer situations, and how do we deal with that? And how do we help the sellers prioritize what's the best offer for them, right? And so you could do this in a lot of you can do this in a lot of different ways. I've had sellers review everything, and I've said, sometimes the best way to do this is trim the fat, and let's look at your top 5. If there's a lot of offers. And then from there, we can trim it down even a little bit more to the top 3. And then we dig into the terms, the numbers, the timelines, all the contingencies, if any. Are they waiving inspections and appraisals and weigh all of those out? Like Junior said before, sometimes it's not just the number, right? Maybe the highest isn't always the best. Maybe it's the terms, right? And again, always important to know what the seller is looking for. And then on both sides, for the buyer to present the strongest offer, and then for the listing agent, knowing what their priorities are, and then being able to relay that in what is the most suitable, best offer for the listing agent based on what's important to them. So, okay. I think this is like the ends, but I feel like we didn't really cover much of this. Do you guys have questions when representing sellers on responding to offers, reviewing the purchase offers? Do you have questions about what might the strength of one offer be as opposed to another? Highest and best, anything like that? Here's your opportunity. I don't have much more to, this piece of it is a little bit quicker. There's not a lot of material on this, but there might be a lot of questions. So I don't want to cut the class if you guys might have questions about this when working with the seller. Laura, can you think of anything that might be really pertinent for us to discuss it before we close the session?
The thing that came to my mind is that of the lender, when you're looking at the pre-approval, not to hesitate to go back to a buyer and say, hey, the seller really loves your offer, but we're not willing to work with, Rocket Mortgage or, XYZ Mortgage. And we prefer a local lender. Would your buyer be open and willing to, working with a different lender, somebody more local, something along those lines?
Correct, right? And so the lender could be also a strength in the offer. That's a great point. That's a great point.
Is there a timeline for a seller to sign a contract once it's signed by the buyer?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, and that's a really good question because I
Yeah.
don't know, I've seen contracts take sometimes over 2 weeks to get fully executed, which just blows my mind. But a lot of times the delay can be with the attorneys going back and forth, but the goal and the hope is that all parties really want to move forward and they're going to expedite that process and get in there and sign that contract. And so typically there's a back and forth with listing and buyer agents. Did your client sign the contract yet? Are they signing today? When are they scheduled to sign? So that you're able to tell, your seller, okay, it's signed, it's on its way back. Talk to your attorney, get scheduled to sign. So, but no, there's no real timeline.
You can set, we've seen some insidious behavior by the attorneys in when these markets get difficult too, where, if the seller instructs the attorney to sit on the contracts and that they're not going to sign them because maybe they put an offer in on a house that they don't love and they're hoping to get a different house or find a different house. So, but they want to get this contract because they have to close in a certain period of time. And then they get this ball rolling and then decide, well, we're looking at 3 more houses next weekend. So just sit on the contract and, we're not going to sign it yet. And I've seen that happen on both sides of the fence in these contentious markets. So at some point, the seller can say to their attorney, advise them, hey, if the buyer doesn't sign the contract by X, I'm moving on. I'm nullifying the offer. The buyer's attorney can do the same thing. So you can put that sort of stipulation on it, but it gets, the further you get into the deal, the harder it is to bail out, so that's an issue.
Awesome. Any questions? If not, we'll close out the class. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Lori.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm glad you guys came in. Hopefully you got some good nuggets to, you learned something. You got